You think you can take me on?
That's the wrong question.
Oh, yeah? What's the right one?
The right question is, do you really want to find out?
Motherfucker!
In 1878, in San Francisco, a group of Chinese men arrive at the port, including Ah Sahm, a very skilled fighter. After getting into a fight with the immigration officers, Tao decides to sell him off to the Hopway, one of the crime groups in Chinatown. Later that night, two of Merriweather's Chinese laborers get killed by Irish labor thugs, Morgan and Davis. Police officer Lee apprehends them and agrees to testify against them in court. Realizing that he's failed on his agreement to protect the Merriweather men, the mayor, Mr. Blake, decides to create a Chinatown squad consisting of Bill, Lee, and two other officers and tasks them with keeping watch over Chinatown. That night, Ah Sahm inquires about his sister, Ling, but hits a brick wall. His questions attract Long Z, another crime group, who try to capture him, but he manages to fight them off. At the station, Leary pays the bail for Morgan and Davis, but they eventually get killed by Atoy, an expert swordsman who's also the owner of a brothel in Chinatown. Meanwhile, Ah Sahm finds out his sister is married to the leader of Long Z, but she doesn't seem pleased to see him. Unknown to him, she is in cohorts with Buckley, the deputy mayor, to thwart any attempts at peace between the Tongs, the Chinese criminal groups. In the streets of Chinatown, Ah Sahm, Youngjun, the son of Father Jun, the leader of the Hopway, and Bolo kill some of the Long Z's men because they're transporting opium. However, Bill and Lee learn of the killing the following day when they're at Morgan and Davis's crime scene. Later, Ah Sahm and Youngjun meet Penelope, the mayor's wife, in a powder shop. But as she leaves, she forgets her gloves and Ah Sahm goes after her to return them. However, he ends up in a fight when she's attacked. As a result, he's arrested unjustly for assault and also gets the blame for the recent deaths. Meanwhile, Penelope tries to talk to her husband into freeing Ah Sahm, but he declines, insisting that Ah Sahm is a criminal because of his affiliation with the Hopway. Later on, Bill grants her an audience with Ah Sahm, and she uses the opportunity to apologize and thank him for saving her life. Back in Chinatown, one of the patrol officers who gave information to the Hopway about the Long Z gets killed by Li Young, Ling's right-hand man and secret lover. In a restaurant, Leary approaches Mr. Mercer, Penelope's father, to agree to hire Irish working men for his prospective cable car track contract rather than the cheaper Chinese labor. Meanwhile, Ah Sahm gets tried for assault as there's no evidence of the murder charge against him. Outside the court, a bigoted Leary tells Bill to do anything possible to get Ah Sahm killed before his trial the following day. On the other hand, Penelope tries to act as a witness in Ah Sam's trial, but his lawyer refuses due to the mayor's influence. Back at the station, a botched attempt on Ah Sam's life is made, and soon after, he gets released. After his release, Ling asks Ah Sahm to return to China, but he refuses. Afterward, he heads over to Atoy's brothel with Cao and the Hopway, celebrating his release. On the streets that night, Ling meets Buckley discreetly, and they discuss a plan to bring the Hopway down. Meanwhile, Leary visits the witness whose absence in court was responsible for Ah Sam's quick release, and discovers that they were threatened. Disappointed, Leary burns the man's house down and threatens him to leave San Francisco with his family. In a Fenghai gambling house, Bill is collecting quite the debt. He is later visited by Jack Damon, who works as a debt collector for the Fenghai, another Tong, and is given an ultimatum of 3 weeks to pay up his debts. On the street, during a discussion, Ah Sahm tells Youngjun that he'd come to San Francisco looking for a girl, who he now believes is dead, referring to his sister. As the conversation progresses, Ah Sahm sees Jacob, Penelope's manservant, and follows him until he meets Penelope. Unable to suppress the feelings that have been growing between them, they have sex. Meanwhile, Bill receives orders from the chief of police to shut down Atoy's brothel. However, Bill surprisingly finds the mayor there, although Buckley comes to pick him up shortly. Atoy successfully bribes Bill to leave out herself and her girls, while the rest of the men are taken away. At the station, the mayor, the chief of police, and the Chinatown squad take a picture to show their little victories against the Chinese criminal elements. Meanwhile, all of Ling's efforts to send Ah Sahm back to China to keep him away from the war that's been brewing between the Tongs fail. Having been sent on an assignment by Father Jun, Ah Sahm and Youngjun are tasked to sending the corpse of a relative to China. They ride in the company of a few Englishmen and have to stop by a saloon in Nirvana when night falls. There, Youngjun meets an Indian girl he likes and gets in a quarrel with one of the Englishmen he rode with. However, an outlaw known as Harlan and his gang come in, kill the Englishmen, and rob them. But his attempt to take the coffin prompts Ah Sahm and Youngjun to put up a fight, killing Harlan's men, while Harlan himself escapes. After a spell of curiosity regarding Harlan's attempt, Ah Sahm, following a hunch, opens the coffin and finds a bag of gold inside the corpse. After intense deliberation, they all decide to stay back and fight when Harlan returns. Harlan then returns as expected, and a fight ensues that leaves Harlan and his men dead. The following morning, Ah Sahm and Youngjun part ways with the Englishmen and the saloon owners. It's the Chinese New Year. While the parade goes on, the Feng Hai and Ling's orders detonate a bomb intended for Father Jun. The explosion hurts a few more people, including some English women. Bill and Lee are also present at the event and sustain a few minor injuries as a result. However, Father Jun is still alive, and Youngjun asks for a doctor immediately. As Bill returns home, he finds Damon with his family. His ultimatum is up, and Damon insists he shows up that night at the Banshee pub to pay up his debt. Ah Sahm then visits Father Jun in the hospital, learning that Feng Hai is responsible for the bombing. Ah Sahm and Youngjun meet up with Cao, who in turn reveals Ling's connection to the Feng Hai. Later that day, the Hop Wei wipe out a Feng Hai base and drop off a body with Long Zi and Ling, with Long Zi finally realizing Ling's sabotaging antics. Meanwhile, Bill lures Damon into a trap by informing Leary that Damon is working for the Chinese. Feeling betrayed that one of their own, an Irishman, is working for the enemy, Leary beats Damon to within an inch of his life and has Bill kill the defenseless Damon. After returning from the hospital, Father Jun meets with Long Zi regarding Ling's murder attempt. After the meeting, Long Zi realizes that he may have to pay for Ling's actions with his life. In a pub, a man approaches Bill, revealing that there's a bounty on Lee's head and proposes to split it with Bill if he gives up Lee. Bill appears to agree, but has plans of his own. Learning that Bolo, one of Father Jun's men, is out to kill Ling and Long Zi, Ah Sahm secretly goes to his sister's rescue. He fends off Bolo, but it's Ling that ultimately delivers the killing blow. After that, Ling sends him away and proceeds to kill Long Zi, taking over the leadership of the Long Zi Tong. Later that evening, Bill goes over to Lee's house to find out the truth about the bounty. After learning that Lee had escaped his hometown only because he killed the men who had murdered his black girlfriend, Bill has the bounty man beaten and sent back to Georgia. The next morning, Bolo's body is found, prompting the Hop Wei to prepare for war. Following Long Zi's funeral, the war between the Hop Wei and the Long Zi begins. The fight between the Tongs leaves blood on the streets and losses on both sides, prompting the police to show up the following morning alongside Buckley and Senator Robert, with the senator making a speech about the Chinese time in San Francisco coming to an end. At the Hop Wei, Tao informs Father Jun of Lao Ting's desire to negotiate a truce with Ling, with Father Jun agreeing. At the brothel, Atoy receives bad news from her business associate regarding one of the lands she intends to buy. The real estate tycoons are against selling because she is Chinese. They also threaten to expose her ownership of a brothel if she doesn't top up the agreed payment for the land. Atoy agrees, only to kill the men and dispose of their bodies after the deeds have been signed. At the meeting with the Lao Ting, the Tongs agree to a duel that will stop the ongoing war. Father Jun picks Ah Sahm to fight on behalf of the Hop Wei, and Ling picks Li Yong. Meanwhile, Penelope ends things with Ah Sahm after having sex with her husband for the first time just to get her father's contract approved. As per their agreement, Mr. Mercer employs Leary's men as soon as he gets the contract. Simultaneously, Tao prepares the arena for the duel, while Ah Sahm and Li Yang continue to train for the big fight. Though his sister tries to get Ah Sahm to back down on his decision, Ah Sahm insists on fighting for the Hop Way. On the night of the duel, Bill and Lee are on patrol when they stumble on the arena, just as the fight begins. Ah Sahm starts on a good note, but eventually faces defeat in a surprising twist. Just as Li Yang goes for the kill, sanctioned by Ling, Bill fires a shot in the air, disrupting the duel. Rejected by Father Jun, Ah Sahm is taken in by Atoy. Following her victory at the duel, Ling is finally acknowledged as Long Zi's new leader. After visiting Cao to find out about the killing of the real estate tycoons, Bill and Lee part ways. But Lee gets attacked by some of the Feng Hai because of Bill's debt and is eventually hospitalized. Ah Sahm finds himself in the Coolie Square since he can't return to the Hop Way. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Bill sits beside Lee, feeling guilty for roping him into his mess. After finding out that Mercer has broken their agreement on the employment of Chinese labor, Leary visits Mercer for inquiries and learns that Buckley was behind it. When Leary confronts Buckley, he's told the move was made for economic reasons. Back at the Coolie Square, Youngjun visits Ah Sahm, asking him to return, but Ah Sahm refuses. Cao then meets Ah Sahm afterward and offers him a job at Mercer's factory, which he accepts. At the factory, he sees Penelope and turns down her attempts at help. After a few days, Leary walks into the factory with some of his men and captures a couple of Chinese laborers. He has their hands smashed with a hammer until Ah Sahm intervenes, fighting the Irishman and giving the captured Chinese the opportunity to escape. The shock of the ensuing violence gives Mercer a heart attack, which eventually results in his death. When Leary and Ah Sahm are just about to fight, the police arrives and chases them off. Later, Ah Sahm catches two of the Irishmen who were at the factory and takes them to Atoy, who then proceeds to torture them. Then, Ah Sahm honors Youngjun's invitation and returns to the Hop Way.
Come to on the